to Beyond the Vine, the show that cuts into the world of music.
I'm Aaron Day, guitarist in UK band These Wicked Rivers, and I'm here with music videographer and photographer. It's Mr. Ryan Vasey. We're back to the professional setup now, aren't we, Mr. Vasey?
Yes, this is joyous.
Last week, if you listen to the show, you know we did it by candlelight and we had a fire on the go. And whereas now we're back to what we're accustomed to, being fed grapes and warm towels. And
Yes.
I don't know why my idea of a posh setup is grapes and warm towels.
Oh, we've gone proper upper class again, haven't we?
Yes, we have, you know.
We have the return of the MacBook.
We do. We missed the MacBook after it died, but it's come back now. It's been resurrected from the grave. And,
Yes.
it's serving us well again. How's your week been, mate?
Oh, it's been pretty decent. Of course, we've had Christmas since we last were on, weren't we?
We have, yeah. Did you have a good Christmas?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Just a quiet one.
Yeah, we said this. When you get to like, our age,
Yeah.
you know, our old
When I
age.
hit my old age.
My dad sat me down when I was about 21, you know, and I was like, it's a good Christmas, isn't it, Papa? And he went, shut up.
You're
Listen.
finished.
Literally, he went, sit down.
Yeah.
Listen, this is the end of your Christmas joy. And I was like, what do you mean, Papa? And he was like, you're from now on, all you get is money and alcohol. And I went, that sounds all right, actually, Papa. You know, because that's how I spoke like I was in Oliver.
Please, sir. Please, can I have some more Christmases?
Please, can I have some more Christmases? No. Your brother and sister get more Christmases because they're younger.
You're done.
But yeah, and then my brothers had the same chat, and my sister's probably going to have the same chat quite soon because it's getting to that age. But it was still a good Christmas. Got some vinyl, got King Crimson album, and an album by the band Cactus. Yeah, so my dad knows me well. He just, but my record collection is mainly 70s. So like one year, last year actually, he bought me Ozzy's new album on vinyl, but he gave me the option between that and a Skinner album, and I was like, I'll have the Skinner album.
Have it within keeping.
That's within keeping. Otherwise, that would have been a far too modern, you know, to fit in. So
has to be at least 40 years old.
Correct. Have you been listening to what you've been listening to this week, man? Much Christmas music?
I had one day where I caved to a bit of Christmas music.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Ironically, it's kind of a little bit what we were talking about before we went on air. I did play the Darkness Christmas song.
It's probably for most rockers would agree the only tolerable Christmas song.
I was going to say that's the only one I can really tolerate.
When I took me and Jay to see my mum and dad Christmas morning, because obviously we were allowed without threat of death.
Yes.
And I put on my new fucking used car salesman jacket that Jay got me.
Yes, that as a side note, if anybody does see Aaron around, he's now selling cars.
I feel $1 million in that jacket. And then literally, we put Bell's End by Darkness on with all the windows down at full volume and me just shouting, "It's Christmas!" and just shouting that at poor children trying to walk their new dogs, you know. So, yeah, I do agree. I think it's the only tolerable. I've also been listening to Darkness, not just the Bell's End. We're chatting
just
again.
on repeat.
Just on repeat. just shouting, "It's Christmas!" Because I do like the Darkness, but I've never given it, like I'd put on the Platinum Collection, which is their greatest hits, and if I, you know, because sometimes I like that burst of positivity that you get from a band like that. You know, I think you described them as a party band.
Yeah, they're what I feel are, they're very self-aware.
Yes.
They know what they are, and they appear like they have fun, which you can't really knock them for. Some of what they do isn't to my taste, but some of it is. For me, it's a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah, and so I've gone to sort of Permission to Land, which is their, you know, it's their debut album, but I think it's their classic album as well, you know. And the first 5 or 6 songs to that are just immense because they're just pure. It's just single after single, you know, like real good songs. And like you say, my biggest problem with them, the same as you, was for years I felt like I truly couldn't get into them because I didn't. A lot of the bands that I get into, I'm falling in love with the whole thing with it, as we've said before. And with the Darkness, it's different. You know, it's not on Steel Panther level, but it's fun. It's a different type of band, you know. But I do feel like I'm missing a little bit of that sort of you know, vibe in my musical sort of.
I get that.
Yeah, so I'm giving that a go at the minute. So I will update as we go.
As I mentioned earlier as well, on the music video front,
Mm.
I would totally do a music video for them any day
Is
of the
this
week.
you putting yourself out
Yeah,
there?
just saying, you know, if they
Just
if they want to do something fun, then I'm the guy.
Fucking hell. Why did you look directly into my soul when you did that? Right, I'll be leaving out the back entrance. That's not a metaphor for anything.
No, every time I see a music video that they do, it looks fun.
Yeah, I agree, and
Yeah.
I do think, like I said it myself, I'd struggle for them to be my main sort of musical outlet if I was in a band like that, because I feel like I've got quite a lot of stuff in me that's reasonably serious that I want to express. But as a side project, because if you're going out to do a gig like that, you're giving people nothing but fun. Do you know what I mean? And people need that, man. Life's hard.
Particularly now.
Yeah, life's
you
fucking
know.
hard work. So the idea, we should go to a gig when COVID disappears, or in a COVID world where gigs have been able to happen. We should go and see the Darkness, man, and report back to the wonderful listeners.
I might bite the bullet. I might go. My dad's just like shuddered.
I'd love to tell your dad that I took you to a Darkness gig.
He'd break out in a sweat.
Fantastic. That would definitely happen. Now we'll get some leopard skin trousers.
I need to go in full spandex.
I've got. So I'll let you borrow some. I saw you out, kid. So in this week's main feature, we're asking the question: what is the new wave of classic rock? Okay, so obviously I play in These Wicked Rivers. We'd be classed as a band that's under that banner of the new wave of classic rock. So I mean, Ryan, when did you first hear the term the new wave of classic rock kind of come about?
It's pretty recent for me. I would say at some point earlier this year. Before that, though, I distinctly remember there being this thing of people would be like, "Oh, there's new classic rock bands knocking about, like Greta Van Fleet, etc." But this whole like new wave thing crept in maybe around like March. My dad mentioned it at one point, and I kind of lurched back a little bit, and I was like, "What's going on here?"
Well,
and he must have. There is no conceivable way he fetched it from anywhere else. Classic rock must have started writing it around that point, and he's obviously picked it up from there.
It's quite an accolade, really. I mean, that your dad uses it as a common term. It's similar with my dad. Obviously, he sees it a bit more because we've been evolved and around with the team that run it for a few years now as a band. But I think that's a massive positive. And the guys mention it, Rich and Peter, when we speak to them later on, that obviously now there's a Spotify playlist named after it. I think on iTunes it's known as a collective genre, which is amazing. And I think we mention it in the interview, but we both feel that sort of around 2005 there was sort of an initial first wave, and this is maybe just a continuation of that, and probably more about cementing that now as being an actual sort of renaissance of classic rock music. One of the things that the guys mention is that it's kind of a bit of an awkward one using the term classic. I know Wyatt's expressed that he thinks it's a bit daft to have this new wave of classic, because how can it be classic? But you don't think it's that much of a bad thing, do you?
No. I think some people get a bit frightened. They think, "Oh, if we use the word classic, then like younger people will be like, oh, I ain't going near that because it's classic, it's old, it's done, it's finished." Whereas, I feel even just from walking about, you notice people are dressing kind of vintage. They're looking kind of retro. Vinyl sales have increased. You see people using Polaroid cameras. There's this whole thing around it, not necessarily even within rock. There's that indie scene as well that's got this kind of retro thing going on. So I think using the word classic rock and stuff, I think it's starting to become it's starting to become a cool thing again. It's like it's come back round again.
No, I agree completely. I think it's definitely rooting back to that sort of late 60s, early 70s thing. I mean, me and you are very much into that with obviously Neil Young and and Hendrix, and I think that there's nothing wrong with toying that term at all. And we saw it with bands like the Answer, Blackstone,
Yeah.
around 2005, and it did die. It did kind of go off a little bit, and
Mm.
some bands have suffered because of that, like Airborne, who actually think because of the nature of their music, we're always going to struggle to be able to continuously evolve or have that creativity. But I did feel like around 2010, 2011, when metalcore and genres like this seemed to take the hold a little bit more, classic rock did take the background. But as you say, along with that resurgence of retro and vintage, it seems like a natural time for an entirely new genre
I
to
think,
resurrect.
yeah, I think it's in a better position now than what it was back then.
I'd agree.
Because I think that there is, as I say, even outside of classic rock, there's this whole retro thing. So when people are looking for something that kind of fits in with that, they could potentially look to this new wave of classic rock.
Yes. So what me and Ryan have done, alongside our interview with the two gents from the New Wave Classic Rock group, is we both picked a band that for us kind of personifies that new wave of classic rock movement. I've gone for one UK based that we've gigged with a couple of times. It's Hollow Star, which are an awesome band. Like I'm sure both Peter and Rich are big fans of Hollow Star. They feel like the sort of the journeyman of the new wave of classic rock scene. Even though they've not been around for that sort of continuation of time. I think more just because of the fact that when you see them, you feel like you're watching a band that's at the height of what they do. And that for me, that's the biggest compliment of it. And they take classic sort of songwriting tendencies, but they give it a modern edge. And for me, I think that's a lot of what the new wave of classic rock is about. I mean, if you've not checked out their last album, it's mixed superbly. It's got this power and this energy to it, and it's got that sort of the modern recording techniques similar to sort of Blackstone Cherry or Nickelback. And Nickelback get a lot of bad beef, man, but them earlier albums are killer, but it's got this more sort of classic sort of roundingness to it that gives it an overall better quality for me with Hollow Star.
If you were for example, if you were to say who are they most like, what kind of audience would be most into them, would you say?
Ooh, they've got a bit of the Blackstone sort of heaviness to them. When Blackstone come away a little bit from their southern side, and it's more just sort of really strong, down tuned sort of riffage. That's kind of where I'd probably point people towards. Same with the choruses. It's got big choruses, but the choruses also take kind of a more classic edge to them. It still they still feel like a British band. A lot of what can happen with British bands when they go for that sort of Theory of a Dead Band, Nickelback sort of sound, they end up almost evoking an American voice as well.
Yeah.
Because it naturally comes with the genre. Whereas Hollister don't do that. I feel like they really keep it in terms of that. You feel like you're listening to a British band that are just putting their own stomp on that sort of song type of songbook. So yeah, it'd be that sort of Blackstone, a little bit of Nickelback in there, but not at all as a negative. As a compliment in terms of what Nickelback are truly actually awesome at when you get into the roots of what they are as a band.
Okay, so like prime Nickelback.
Yeah, definitely. I think American radio rock can be. People take it as a criticism, but it's not. It's powerful, and when you hear it on the radio, it shits on everything else. When it's done well, and I think Hollister do that well. What's yours, man?
Mine. Some people will go, "Oh, well, it was obvious, wasn't it?" Mine's Crownlands.
Hey, this is Mr.
I'm pushing this
putting
band.
the hipster card on the table.
I'm pushing this band fully.
No, respect.
I feel that in the next year, 2 years, they'll be kind of considered on the same level, or maybe even a bit higher than Greta Van Fleet. Bold statement.
Yeah, it's a big statement, man.
Yes, but they've released a debut album this year, and it did pretty damn well. If you look at the music videos this year on YouTube, the view count is ridiculous. Yeah. So I feel there's a foundation already there. Musically, they're a two-piece act, and if you were to make a comparison of who they're like, it's like if Led Zeppelin Jack White and Rush all had a child, that is your outcome.
I do like the bit of Rush because they have got a lot of that
Mm.
Rush in them. You know, what do you think is about them? Because obviously a lot of people that know the new wave of classic rock will quite easily sort of link it to a lot of the bands on the UK scene. What do you think makes them part of that movement?
They, they again they link into that retro vintage thing. They've got, while sounding kind of modern, they also sound kind of, for lack of a better word, classic, with a
Mm.
classic rock style
Yeah.
as well.
Like you said, the influences are
Yeah,
entirely
there's
classic, but they put their own. Do they put their own tinge on it? I mean, they must do if it's an amalgamation of all them
yeah,
three bands.
it's some songs you'll go, oh, that's a little bit Led Zeppelin-y, but then, for example, another one called End of the Road it's got a very Rush sound.
Mm.
So per song, there's a shift slightly in tone, which I find quite interesting.
Oh,
There's you certainly couldn't say that, oh, well, it all sounds the same, because
yeah.
yeah, per song they've got an identity, in a kind of weird way.
Yeah, and they were due to tour. Obviously, pretty much 100% when it happened, but they were due
Mm,
to come over with Larkin Poe in February. So
yeah.
that might have been a nice introduction for UK fans to start to integrate them into their mindsets of maybe being a part of the scene. And it's 100%. I mean, I'm sure Peter and Richard have backed this up. It's 100% not UK focused. You know, it's just
No.
about that mindset of it's that
Mm.
movement of bands taking them classic things. And I think by the sounds of it, Crownlands embody everything about that.
Yeah, I think there's a rawness about them, um, and they have these influences, but they don't just sound like a copy. They have everything that you would want from a new wave of classic rock band. There's a couple of familiar things in there, but they also put in their own stuff as well. And I think the further on they go, it's going to be interesting to see where they progress.
No, that's cool. No, if you've not checked out Hollister on Crownlands, make
Mm.
sure you check them out now and let us know your thoughts. So yeah, earlier in the week, myself and Ryan spoke to Richard and Peter, who are parts of the minds behind the New Wave of Classic Rock page, and we'll hear that now.
Okay, so we're here today with Richard and Peter, two of the founding members of the New Wave of Classic Rock page. Thanks for coming, guys.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
No, absolutely. So the reason we asked Rich and Pete to come on Beyond the Vibe this week is we're asking the question, what is the new wave of classic rock?
Yes. So to help answer that question, let's go right back to the beginning. So the New Wave Classic Rock page was founded in October 2017. How did this conversation start around setting it up, and what are your backgrounds before that?
Well, basically, from my perspective, we were myself, Jeremy, and Steve, Ian, Katerina. We were all admins of a much larger group, Rock and Metal Heaven, 1970 to 1992. And we kept seeing all these new bands coming through, and there was no platform for them. And also, when I was going to gigs and things, trying to get people to listen to new music was really difficult. They sort of said, well, why do we want new music? We've got our Deep Purple, Zeppelin, Sabbaths and whatever. We're quite happy with what we've got. We sort of begged the question, well, what happens when those bands disappear? And really, for us, what it was all about was a name and providing a platform for these new bands, because we kept listening to all these bands, and you might hear the odd track on Planet Rock or the odd interview in Classic Rock magazine or whatever, but there's very little. I mean, there were bands like Voodoo 6 and Glider, and these sort of bands who are around, sort of knocking at the door, but not really getting much exposure. And then all of a sudden, we had loads of bands suddenly appear, like yourselves, these Wicked Rivers, Scam, Hollow Star, New Roses, all these bands suddenly playing rock music that we recognise as being classic rock in style and the way it's played. And we thought, well, how can we engage our 40,000 members in the other group to actually listen to these new bands? So we had a bit of a barnstorming session over a few beers on the internet, and I think it was Jeremy who came up with the new wave of classic rock name. Literally overnight, when we started the group, the bands engaged straight away. It was the bands that really engaged and some really enthusiastic fans, and then it just exploded from there, really. And really, we've never looked back from that perspective. It just kept growing and growing and growing. I think one of the secrets is the fact that the bands are engaged, they engage with the fans. We try and keep the site sort of troll free, basically. We don't like these keyboard trolls who just want to knock down anything that's positive. So we just try and we approve every post that's put up there. So it's a lot of work, but we do try to keep it friendly. So it's engaging to everybody. It's all inclusive. So everybody can come and join knowing that they're not going to get any sort of rubbish thrown at them. And then later on, this is where Richard comes in, we needed to sort of expand the admin base. And also Richard, with his more IT skills, helped give us a bit of a kick up the backside, and he was very instrumental in getting Webfest off the ground. So Richard probably want to tell you a little bit about that.
Well, how did you two meet? Just as a thing, did you know each other before the page started?
Gigs.
Right. Okay. So you already kind of both knew each other from the community then.
Gigs and T-shirts. The new wave of classic rock T-shirt.
Right.
People. That's where the community sort of started out. People started seeing people wearing the T-shirts, so they would come and talk to you, and it's sort of like built from there. And then all the profits that are raised from the T-shirts goes back into the scene, as it were. We take nothing from it. So basically, all the money that's been raised has either gone to Rockin' by the River, the Live Wire charity, or going to pay the bands on Webfest. So it's it's been and also when or was it Tequila Mockingbird had all their gear stolen, we donated some money to help them replace their gear. So it's not a lot of money, but it's something. But it's really this has really shown is it's a community, and we have our ups and downs, we have our falling outs with other groups, but at the moment, because of COVID, everybody's really come together and really solidified the scene, ready for 2021, middle of the year, when we all come out of it and are ready to start seriously going to gigs and things again.
I think you kind of mentioned it a bit with in terms of Jeremy coming to the name, but when the band got involved with the group, I grew up a lot with my dad with the new wave of British heavy metal, bands like Maiden and Tigers and Praying Mantis. And when the new wave of classic rock came about, my dad reflected that it was that similar sense of community that it was sort of in 1980, and that was really cool for me because I'd watched sort of the early days DVDs of Maiden and stuff and got an idea of that sort of scene. So it was nice for me to feel like I was part of my own community, with my own band and that own, sort of wave that was pushing forward.
Well, it was that community thing that really got me started and got me involved, because I was very, very much into all the old school stuff, Maiden and Metallica and Alter Bridge more recently, I guess, but always looking out for new bands that were forming from old bands, people like Winery Dogs and those kind of bits and pieces. And I think it was the day that Metallica started selling tickets for £100. I just went, oh, screw this is ridiculous. Right, there must be other bands out there that I can see that aren't going to cost me £100 to go and see from the back of an arena somewhere. And then Winery Dogs, who were one of my favourite sort of newish bands, they played at the Kentish Town. It's not called the Forum, right? And they had Inglourious in them, and it was like, holy shit! Right? Suddenly you've got a band that's come out of Dream Theater and other bands like that, and then you've got a new band. It's like, where the hell did these guys come from? And it was going on to the Inglourious page on on the internet and finding out that they were active in new wave of classic rock, and then starting to dig into other people new wave of classic rock. I put out a post saying, "Listen, guys, I'm really interested in seeing a whole bunch of these new bands. I don't really know any of them, but I want to rekindle my love of going to see, small bands in small venues. I'm in and around the London area. Is anything going on in the next couple of weeks I ought to be seeing? And does anyone want to meet up for a beer?" And immediately 2 or 3 people pinged me and said, "Yeah, this band's playing, this band's playing, this band's playing." And that was kind of the first time I met a whole bunch of people that were already in new wave of classic rock. The first time I saw Scam, I was absolutely blown away by it, and that was like, okay, well, I need to get my money out and start getting involved now. And I guess as soon as the t-shirts started coming out, I was buying merch, I was reviewing things, I was doing gig reviews. And it was at that point when Pete approached and said, "Well, do you want to get more involved?" And it's like, well, absolutely, yeah, why not? Absolutely. And it's literally going to a gig once every 3 months for one of the monsters, to going to gigs every week again, and meeting just a fantastic, lovely bunch of people that have become really close friends. And that's both punters and the bands. I mean, as you're aware, Aaron, the bands are very interactive with their fans, and I've met most people from most bands that I've seen. I always go up and introduce myself afterwards. Pete and Jeremy and all those guys do as well. And it's very important to us to have that interactivity and to let the bands know that actually, we're not just people in the back letting everyone else do everything. We're very, very involved, and want to be there to help push the band's music and help push their PR and help push them on the internet and to other people.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I was chatting to Ryan beforehand, who was chatting about Parsley's wedding. And I think that kind of personifies everything that the two of you have just said. Obviously you were helping out sort of backstage and that, Rich, and it was just a full community of new wave of classic rock bands. And it was nice because that single moment kind of brought loads of bands together that had seen each other at different gigs. But to have a load of bands in there at one moment, I remember the backstage area where everyone was drinking and chatting and stuff. And like you see bands that you've not gigged with for sort of maybe a year, 2 years, but everybody's kind of knows each other. And it's the biggest word that seems to come to the forefront really is that word community. Absolutely. Each other. Everyone's on the same page.
There's a great little festival in Bournemouth called Love Rocks, which sort of started off as like tribute bands, but Jim Love, who organises it, again was a sort of fairly early adopter into new wave of classic rock, and he saw an opportunity to give these bands like yourselves a stage. So basically he's moved away from having a tribute band as headliner to having Chris Barris and Bad Touch headlining. He's put his sort of money on the line and had faith in these bands to draw an audience, and it's a great festival, and it actually gives a sense of community, exactly as you say, because most of the bands camp on site. So actually, not only are all the bands mingling with everybody in a small sort of environment, but also links are made, other gigs are booked, or do you want to come and play a gig here? Do you want to do this there? The fans get to meet everybody, and it's just a really, as has been said, a really nice sense of community. Going back to what Richard was saying earlier, one of the bands that really sort of twigged me into thinking there are lots of new bands coming through that need to be heard was actually Alter Bridge. My very good friend of mine, my partner, Chris, she played me the Blackbird album, and it just blew me away. I thought, why haven't I heard this? Why has it passed me by? Because I was stuck listening to my Blue Oyster Cults and Black Sabbaths and Deep Purples. And I heard that, and I remember going to the Black Star Riders debut gig at the Marshall Studios in Milton Keynes and having a long chat with Paul Anthony from Planet Rock, sort of saying, why don't you play new music on Planet Rock? This, bearing in mind, this is 4 years ago now, or whatever. And I said, there's so many bands out there coming through that need to be played. And he sort of said, well, at the moment, the fans want to hear classic rock. They don't want to hear these new bands. But if you look over the period of time now, look at their playlists, these bands are played regularly, and Massive Wagons are breaking through. Bad Touch of regular players. It's really good. So to have actually start to listen, and although Wyatt doesn't really like our name, he sort of says, "How can you be new wave and classic at the same time?" But hey, that's just one of those things. But we're all in it together. We're all there to actually promote and push the bands and create a really good environment, so us older fans can go to gigs. Our next big challenge is to try and lower the age demographic of the people going to the gigs.
Well, it's probably something that me and Ryan can give a bit of insight to, because obviously it's a different time, but around sort of 2005, because we're about the same age, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think we both grew up with our dads making sure that we turned out the way that we did, without any exceptions. So with this, we were always going to have long hair and always going to be going to gigs. So we had that musical education of, like you say, Sabbath. Skinner was a big one for me, Maiden. And then around sort of 2005, bands like sort of Blackstone Cherry, The Answer. I've done similar emotion that you expressed, Rich. I can remember when I saw Whitesnake, and it was my first gig, actually. I was only about 10 or 11 years old. I saw Whitesnake, and The Answer supported it. And it was really nice for me, sort of being able to see a band and being like, oh, this can be mine. You know what I mean? It's not sort of, I'm going to be following this journey completely as my own. Did you get the same sort of emotions with bands like that?
Yeah, I was more gravitating towards bands like Wolfmother and Roadstar as well.
Yeah.
We viewed.
Yeah.
There was. It felt more like it was my own at that point. It wasn't, like just looking back at like Black Sabbath, because it's like that's kind of, it was more towards the end of that journey, whereas this one's beginning, so it feels more like your own.
And I think that's the ultimate appetite. Like you said, you feel like you can be part of the foundations of these bands and really follow them and be a part of the story, rather than like Ryan put, sort of being at the end of it. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, in terms of that wave, I mean, did that inspire you at all? Because we kind of feel, looking back, that there was like almost like a little burst of classic rock that came through and then died and went away again, and then obviously now it's kind of coming back.
That was exactly it. As you say, bands like The Answer, Blackstone Cherry, Shinedown, Alter Bridge, Voodoo Six. There was a lot of bands just knocking at the door, waiting to be heard. And again, it's the weird thing is, one of the things that holds us back a little bit is the title classic rock. I think that sort of can somehow alienate the younger fan, but at the same time, what it's done is engaged a whole group of people who wouldn't have bothered going to look for music. So it's a really difficult one, in that we've created something that we never intended to, and on the scale that. And if you look at iTunes and whatever now, there in Spotify, there is a genre of new wave of classic rock, and which is great because it gives people who are listening an insight into other bands and that sort of thing. But my first gig was 1979. I saw Blue Oyster Cult with Magnum supporting them. Now, as Richard said, I went from going to like one gig a month or something to going to sort of 4 or 5, 6 gigs a month, during pre-lockdown, and it's great to see the established bands now giving the up and coming bands a platform to come and play on. Deep Purple had Massive Wagons go out with them, I think, on their last tour, so things are happening. But again, the big thing is taking that step, taking that leap of faith. At the moment, to me, there's a lot of, because you can't rely on making money being a full-time musician, so you have to be weekend warriors, as it were. You've got jobs, you go to work, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're out gigging. And to take that next step to go fully professional is a massive leap of faith, and that's sort of one of the things. It's great that bands are being signed to labels now, so the labels are getting interested. How much money they put into them, I don't know, but they are trying to, and they'll get them on the tours. They'll get the bands on the tours. You know, what smaller bands will get was local gigs. You know, if somebody comes and plays, they'll come and sort of say, I need local bands that want to come on and play on support. But you know, but there is a scene there now, and you know, seeing more and more festivals coming up. I think, although I don't think it's going to happen, Hard Rock Hell had one due going out in January, new wave of classic rock, which are all mostly new wave of classic rock bands. So, you know, there is something going on, and I think 2021, whenever we come out of this lockdown, will be pretty spectacular. So, I say, I'm talking too much. You need to get Richard to say a few words.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's for me as well. I mean, so as well as doing the admin stuff, as you're aware, I'm also the guy that runs the YouTube channel, and that has been just huge for us. I think it's helped bands immeasurably get things out there. We have. I think we're getting 200 or 300 new subscribers a month now on that, and most of it now is word of mouth. You know, when it started off, it was like, well, let's create a video channel. Well, who the hell's going to put any video on this? And then going to all the bands who I've deliberately gone and met at gigs and saying, have you got a video? Would you like to put it on our YouTube channel? And answer the question, well, how many subscribers have you got? None. But build it, it'll come, right? And you know, I think the combination of that and you know the Webfest stuff that we've been doing this year is getting bands' videos out to a lot more people that would not previously have got to, because people can search now for new wave of classic rock or Nwaka on YouTube, and suddenly there's a couple of hundred videos and playlists of bands, and they can just press play, right? And it's a phenomenal viewing experience. I think that YouTube and Spotify are the double-edged sword, though, right? Because Pete and I used to go down to the market on a Saturday and buy someone's latest single or buy an album once a month or whatever it was, and that's how bands used to make money. But you never knew the local bands. You never knew local bands outside of your little town. You know, there's no way I would have known local bands from Newcastle or no local bands from Sheffield or wherever it is, because you never went there. So I think that the streaming platforms, YouTube, Spotify, etc., what they're giving the bands is they're giving them promotion, right? They're giving them a platform to be able to get out to thousands and thousands and thousands of people in the expectation and knowledge that they're going to make bugger all money out of it, because you can't make money out of streaming. And so the double-edged sword is, yes, you're going to get your band in front of a lot more people, and hopefully then people will know who you are and they'll come and see you at a gig. But the second side of it is, you can't make money out of it, and those sort of record contracts that we were aware of, that people will get a record contract and they say, well, here's 2 or 3 years money, you can give up your day job now and we'll put you on tour. They just don't happen, or at least they're few and far between. So kind of, I know that this is an interview, which means it's a two-sided conversation. I'd actually like to ask you, Aaron, from your perspective about Spotify and YouTube and all those kind of platforms, and how you see it fitting into the ecosystem.
I don't know, man. I agree with you. I think it gives us a bridge. I mean, I know that like me and Ryan, we discover a lot of bands through YouTube because you get obviously suggested, and like when we was going back to that Heaven's Basement, Blackstone Cherry time, I used to use Spotify a lot for bands that sound like this band. You know, it gave me that bridge. I mean, it's in a perfect world, it's a shame we can't kind of bring it in and then take it away. You know, I think that there's too much of a reliance on it. If anything, you know, I'm really into vinyl, you know, and I think it'd be a lovely way to kind of use that as a bridge to bring people in. But then there will almost be an understanding that once you're into the world, it's then about that close community of sharing records and sharing CDs and buying and supporting one another. But obviously, I think that people naturally then just rely on it. You know, it's just sort of a thing. Why would I buy the CD when I've got Spotify? You know, I pay my monthly fee for it. I can listen to it in the car or whatever, you know. And I think that's the problem, is it's more of a mindset thing. But I do think that with what you guys do and the community as a whole, I think it does help people rebel against that mindset. You know, because there's that closeness. People want to. It's different than a band that you've never met or you've never kind of had a conversation with, because there's that community and there's that friendship there. I think people naturally want to go out of their way, and hopefully that's educating people that they should do that more often. You know, I've chat to loads of people and they say, "Oh, I'll check it out on Spotify," but then once I've done that, I'll make sure I buy it. You know, I'll make sure I make that effort to support the band. So hopefully that sense of community is educating people a little bit and putting them closer to it. So yeah, you're completely right. It's a double-edged sword. It's yeah, in the trap.
Yeah.
But then, you know, again, I think part and parcel of what we're doing with New Wave Classic Rock is to try to break that cycle a little bit. So, you know, when I review an album, or when any of the other guys review an album, generally speaking, we don't preview albums. We only review an album when it's available to buy, or at least we might preview something, but we preview something that has a pre-order link, and that generates sales, and it just does, right? And we know it does, because when we put out our top 20 for the year or whatever it is, we get people pinging it saying, "Oh, I've already bought 15 of those, but I need to look at those other 5." Right, which is fantastic. I just love that. I absolutely love that. And I think the other thing is that it's really important for bands to know, and people that are going to be watching this to know, is that we buy the music, right? We get sent pre-orders, or we get sent promotional copies of CDs, but simply so that we can get the word out. And we always pre-order the albums, and we always buy the albums, because we believe in what we're doing, and we believe that the whole idea should be that people should be buying music from bands, right? And you know, and I think it's by us saying, "We've all bought this album, why haven't you bought this album?" that people then go and, "Oh, well, bloody hell, if you bought it and you think it's really, really good, I really ought to buy that then," right? And it's like, well, yes, you should.
I mean, how many people do we get on a weekly basis that say we're costing them money?
Yeah.
You know, sort of.
Yeah.
But going back to sort of like the forerunner of Webfest, when we did that promo for Sons of Liberty, when they did a pro shoot for that for their sort of 4 or 5 song set, that was shot professionally. The amount of work that they got from that was phenomenal. You know, they got bookings because people hadn't seen them, professionally shot. And I think, as has happened from the Webfest, from Webfest 1 to Webfest 4, you know, the quality of the stuff that you're being sent or being asked to put out now is phenomenal, isn't it, Richard? I mean, how it's changed from sort of somebody filming something on an iPhone to, you know, people actually investing, because that actually is a massive way of advertising and promoting the band and getting them gigs.
How did that whole kind of Webfest thing come about? Because, I mean, obviously at the moment, particularly with bands in lockdown, it's been a lot harder than normal, and I think that's kind of helped bands, particularly right now.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we released Eden, you know, in the middle of the lockdown, you know, and I think for a lot of bands that, you know, you put so much work into an album, and it's great to have that platform that you guys have been able to come up with. So yeah, as Ryan said, I mean, how did that kind of initially come about?
Well, we saw that a couple of people had started doing lockdown sessions, and a couple of people had started announcing, "Oh, we're gonna open up our Facebook page and let people have 20-minute slots or whatever it is, and you know, do it live." And we just had a chat and said, like, we need to do a formal one of these, right? We need to do a formal one of these with a single way of raising money, right? A single way of doing donations, rather than having to have this thing where every individual band comes on and it's live, which basically means it's going to be crap, right? And every single band's going to need to have their own tip jar, and there's no organization. You know, what we're trying to do is we're trying to have a proper festival. We're trying to have, you know, a festival that runs all the way throughout the day, so that people can tune in at the start and, you know, grab some beers and grab their food or whatever it is. But it's Live Aid, right? I mean, that was the point of, let's try and do Live Aid for small bands. Now, obviously, what we couldn't do is we couldn't put on a big production number at Wembley. But what we could do is reach out to 50 bands and say, have you got some pre-recorded stuff, or have you got the wherewithal to record something via Zoom, you know, or comp stuff together as a band, or, you know, maybe 1 or 2 members of the band do an acoustic number, so that we can put out there some original stuff that hopefully most people have never seen before. And it will encourage people to donate, you know, and give the bands back some money. And that's where we got to with Webfest 1. And it was literally, I bootstrapped the whole thing in 5 weeks, from the first emails going out to the bands, or the first messages going out to the bands, to actually putting it on. It was a 5-week thing, and it was Well, every one of these is a lot of work, right, as you can imagine, but it's enormously rewarding as a result of it, because you're getting to the 3, 4, 5,000 people watching these videos now. You're raising $5,000 for the bands, every one. 4 or 5 grand for the bands consistently now for every one. People are a couple of hundred people are buying T-shirts. I mean, why on earth would you buy a T-shirt for an online music festival? What the hell is that all about, right?
Question is,
it works, and it's magic. It's gonna be magic when we start going out to gigs again and start seeing people wearing Webfest T-shirts. Right? It's gonna be really funny.
No, I agree completely. It's as I say, from a band perspective, it's great to have that support mechanism.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it from sort of a gig musician in the scene, that you guys never put that together. Now, obviously, it's a bit awkward because obviously I'm in these Wicked Rivers, so eliminate me and the boys from the conversation. But in terms of 2021, for you both, who do you both believe are the best up and coming bands on the scene?
Well, for me, the Dust Code are one of those bands that a couple of years ago I thought they were neck and neck with Those Damn Crows, and kind of their first album was absolutely incredible, and they basically did nothing for a year and a half. They didn't tour or anything, and the Crows just kept on going and kept on going. Mostly, well, not mostly, but due to the fact a lot that they had a record contract, I guess, and they were being pushed by management and pushed by the record company to promote all the time and to gig all the time. We are very privileged to have heard Dust Coder's new album, and it's phenomenal. And Earache are going to do an amazing job for them of pushing that and pushing them out there, getting them radio play, getting them onto really good gigs. And they're headlining Webfest 5 on Saturday, 6th of March, along with you guys and Dead Man's Whiskey, who headlined Webfest 1. We've got some other bands that we haven't had on before, people like Raven Breed and the Blood Republic, At the Sun, Loz Campbell, Samarkand, right? So it's going to be a really, really good thing. And we've got a couple of other bands that have been on before. You Guys, which is going to be really, really good. Revival Black, right? And Circus 66. So it's going to be one of those ones where, right, brilliant. It's just going to be really high production value. Superb professional audio and video, and again, wants just a little bit more of a step up from the previous Webfests. But for me, yes, the Dust Coder are going to be the next band. Pete?
Yeah, I would agree with you. The album, having been privileged to hear it, is on another level. That's what's great, though, is year on year, the material every band is putting out they're having to raise their game, so the quality is becoming absolutely stunning. I mean, an album that blew me away this year, obviously, came top of our polls, was Ash and Reach. Be great to see them playing some gigs. I love the Shape of Water with their sort of Muse influences. Obviously, don't say this, but These Wicked Rivers, Eden was very high up in my top 10 albums of the year as well. But yeah, Dust Coder, I think, with the right backing, will do really well. Again, it's getting them placed. It's getting to play things like Planet Rockstock, getting them to get on tours with name bands who already have a following. That's what those Damn Crows have benefited from hugely. Plus they have a big following, and I think that's all put together. That's how Massive Wagons have got where they have as well. Same sort of thing. Good backing. But what this is really good is showing is there is actually, you can do something. It's not a pipe dream anymore. If you're committed, dedicated, then and you've got the chops and the music, people will listen to it and they'll buy it and they'll come and see you play. And I think that gives a lot of musicians a lot of hope. I think 2020, yes, it's been a bit of a bitch because of COVID and set back a lot of plans. But as I say, 2021, come the summer, I think is going to be absolutely massive.
But people are taking note of these Wicked Rivers as well, right? I mean, I know you don't want to talk about it, but it's true. you were the band that when Alan Saville from Savfest asked us if you had a choice of who you'd want to pick to headline one of those days, what band would you like? And I immediately said These Wicked Rivers, right? And the reason behind that was I've seen you supporting bands a couple of times, and I just think that you're fantastic live. And what these festivals need is they need fantastic live acts that aren't necessarily that well known, but will really get the crowd going, and you guys are one of those bands that'll do that. So having you and Scam headlining that festival, I think is absolutely perfect.
No, I appreciate it.
So finally, if you are setting up a tour and you can select one big established band and one up and coming band to kind of like the big band help take off their career, who would you pick? Like, who would be those two? Who would be the big band? Who'd be like that upcoming band to ride off their coattails?
Well, I would pick Metallica, supported by Those Damn Crows.
Oh, that'd be good. This too. It'd be a great gig.
Me would be Skinner, supported by These Wicked Rivers.
Awesome.
Because Skinner are my favourite band, so
yeah.
And anything with as Richard will know, anything with a sort of slightly southern rock vibe, I'm taken with. So that'd be for me. It'd be great. I mean, I was gutted that Rambling Man was cancelled this year because Skinner were headlining Saturday. I don't think they'll be doing it this 2021. So who knows? But yeah, Skinner, These Wicked Rivers.
Yeah, whenever I've had the question, mine's always been I'd have to Skinner, Blackstone, Cherry, and then I'd be like, even though Blackstone have gone off the rails a little bit now, they've got a bit too dad rock for me, but that'd still be my ultimate one, definitely.
I think the thing is, I mean, with the support band, you can't be a clone of the headlining band. You've got to have something different, but you've got to have something that's going to engage the audience as well. And I've seen so many support bands that are a total mismatch that fans just get switched off, and me, I remember the classic one for me was going to see Ronnie Dio and Sabbath Heaven and Hell tour with Lamb of God supporting them. Now, I went in there, watched support band, give them the benefit. I lasted 45 seconds, I think. Once the singer started...
It's pretty rough. Yeah, I mean, I don't know who put that together, but it's pretty...
growling, that was it. I was out of there, So I think, it is important to select the right support bands because rock fans are, by and large, open-minded, fairly broad-minded, but they can see a mismatch when it comes.
Yeah, I had that with when I went to Grab the support band for that, I've forgotten who they were called, but they were a hard country and western outfit. And like when you got a room full of like classic rock fans, that was rough.
That was just when we started out. We started out as a country western band. Arwell used to wear like a big country western hat. That was I can't believe you didn't enjoy that one. I can't think off the top of my head any really bad ones. Yeah, I've seen some great ones. I mean, it's I saw Rival Sons when they first broke, supporting Blackstone Cherry. That was a pretty good one. But I weren't that keen on Rival Sons back then, to be honest.
No, so I think that Rival Sons are one of those bands that have decided that they're a headline band right back from the start. Yeah. So they got a 45-minute set, and rather than just playing all their songs and their best songs to people, they bugger about playing 7-minute guitar solos and 9-minute versions. I was like, come on, seriously, get on with it, will you?
I can remember I've never seen somebody tip out of a tambourine for so long.
Titting about, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, 100% titting about, whereas now they've kind of reached that point, and it feels like they're kind of rising to it a little bit. We'll bring it to a close there, boys. Thanks ever so much for chatting to us.
You're welcome.
Rich.
Welcome.
For anyone who's listening, who's not found out about the new wave of classic rock, check it out now. Webfest 5 is coming in March, so they definitely 100% check that out. And pleasure speaking to you, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Cheers, guys. Have a good one.
Cool. So that was Rich and Peter of the new wave of classic rock.
Now, I know I say it I know I say it every week, right? But they're bloody nice lads, aren't they?
I know, but this
Bloody
is
lovely.
this is what I'm saying. We've continued to be quite fortunate with guests, haven't we?
We have, yeah. Everybody that we've had on Beyond the Vibe has been absolutely awesome, and particularly Rich and Peter. Then, because I think one of the things they emphasise, which is what we're trying to achieve with the podcast, is they really express the community around the current rock scene, particularly in the UK with the new wave of classic rock, and a lot of the people we've been chatting to and will be chatting to in the future are big sort of symbols within that new wave of classic rock, so we hope that we can bring the community together a little bit, and we're really pleased that Pete and Rich came on to talk about that. It was a good chat.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think what they've been doing, particularly with Webfest, I find is it's really it's a positive thing to come out of a negative scenario.
Yeah, well put, man. It's from a band perspective as well. It's massive for us because it gives our platform to express ourselves and to connect with people has been taken away. And so for them guys to be able to put their heads together and give us that platform back, and like I say, by making money from it time and time again, that goes straight back to the bands. It was a big shock for us because we didn't realise how much it affects us in terms of that our income has just gone.
Yeah.
That's our only real income. I mean, fans have been really supportive about when the album came out and merch and stuff, and around Christmas with Christmas merch. The fans continue to support us, but it was quite a shock for us because obviously we've got management, we've got practice spaces, we've got the whole shebang that's now gone, so yeah, no, I appreciate it. And the thing is as well, it's not that it's we're up here and they're helping us, it's everyone's on the same level with us. And
Yes.
that's the key thing for me that embodies the entire thing. Me, you, Rich, Peter, and all the other bands, we're all together in it, and we're all there to support each other and the fans as well. And I think that's badass. That's how it should be.
Yeah, it's that in particular is something that I really like, particularly from what I've seen from this kind of new wave group. There's a very much a togetherness, and particularly at the end of these interviews as well, we've always touched on the fact that when we're allowed to again, we can meet up in person and catch up properly, either at a gig or working together on something else, and it's always been a really positive thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and you well put. We need that positivity at this time. And that's the only way you beat negativity is by just forcing positivity out there. And I think that it's important that we all continue to do that.
Yeah, I think yeah.
Smashing, right? I think we'll call it there. Happy New Year, everyone that's listening.
Yes.
It'll have been and gone by now.
Yeah, it's weird because we're recording this right now on New Year's Eve.
Yes, that's right.
So yeah, in a few hours we will be ringing in the new year, where we will see you, of course, as well.
See you next year. Bye.